Welcome back to Odd Socks. Now, I thought I'd give you a little bit of a chilli update. So, these were all sown, all these chilies in the background here, were all sown on the 25th of the 1st. I think in my Instagram post I actually put it on as the 25th of February sown, but unless I can time travel, I think that was meant to be January. So, I started indoors this year, 25th of January. Using my make do heat pad old reptile heat cable, and they germinated within 3 days, which is the fastest I've ever had any chilies germinate. Now I have got a mixture of other things here as well. Once majority of them are germinated, I started potting on, but as you can see, I'm using grow lights at this time of year. I have not got the space on my maybe 2 windowsills that I've got to actually put this many plants. And I've still got some flowers I need to get out onto the windowsill. So I thought I'd show you what my setup is at the moment. Now it looks a complete mess, and I know there's plenty of growers out there that are in exactly the same predicament as me. Now, normally I don't do that much growing at home under artificial lights, but this year I really did want to push that chili pepper growing. At the moment I'm using these. Now these are called Viper Spectre lights. I actually bought these a long time ago when I was actually doing marine aquariums. Now for the time being, because of expenses, that hobby has been put on hold. But they are a full spectrum light, something that you can actually adjust the lighting, adjust the strength and adjust the spectrum of your lights. Now when I bought these were about £60 to £80, and I think they're an awful lot more money now. But they grow chilies exceptionally well. Now this was a bit of an experiment this year. I wasn't sure whether these were actually going to work. But if I want to start anything off again next year, these are the lights I'll definitely be reusing. So I've been making do with whatever I already have. Now you might be lucky, you might have kept reptiles or tropical fish or something in the past. You may have some spare little bits of equipment that you can repurpose and reuse. I don't like spending money, but at the same time, if you want to grow early certain plants, you are going to have to invest in either a little bit of heat or lighting. I've just got to finish my coffee. It's been a long day already and I've got an awful lot to do. I potted these up, I think, if I remember off the top of my head, it was the 9th of February, give or take a day. Now I pot on mine when they are quite small, because I prefer to not have all the roots tangled. They're less likely to get overly stressed if they are small, because you're taking more of the soil and disturbing less of the root. It's just something that's always worked for me, whether you do it when they've got their first lot of true leaves or when they're younger. In my eyes, I can't see it being a major issue. For me, potting them on when they were still very small have not hurt them at all. And in fact, this isn't the biggest one, but it is one of the bigger ones. This was potted on, again, like I said, on the 9th from a very small seedling, and it's grown incredibly well. It's healthy, it's a really good shaded green, and I'm really pleased with that. So this one that I showed you before, which I've got labelled as number 8, and I have to remind myself what it is. So number 8 is Zitava Paprika Sweet. So this is a pepper. My number 10, which is a chili, is a padron. And this has been fantastic. Now this probably needs to be buried a little bit deeper. The stems have gone a little bit floppy. Now it was planted quite deep, but peppers are very much like tomatoes, where you can plant them quite deep and they'll actually grow roots out of the actual stem. So when this gets potted up again, this will be planted a little bit deeper, just so it gives it a little bit more strength with a few extra roots. But you can see they're really good and healthy. Now this one, yes, it has gone well, I won't say leggy, but it has grown very, very quickly. Now I've not normally had my chili peppers grow this big and so quick. Now the difference between leggy and growing tall is the leaves. If you've got an awful lot of stems showing before any leaves at all, that is definitely leggy. But for this, my leaves are actually growing and I'm getting plenty of new growth every day. So actually that's not bad for 4 weeks worth of growth on a chilli plant. Whenever I've grown chillies before, they've certainly not been this size at 4 weeks. And I'm really surprised that my Make Do chilli pepper growing area has done so well this year. I am really surprised. The only downside I've got to my growing area is I've had to add extra areas for some of the plants that I've got growing. I've got Liatris, I have got Cosmo growing, and a few chilli peppers that I actually haven't potted on. Now these chilli peppers are some of the sweet cherry bombs that I've got, and I think I've got some pepper hots there that I haven't potted up at all because I have got no space whatsoever left in this one little area. And as these plants get bigger, I'm going to really struggle to maintain the size and the good conditions that they need to grow. So what I will be doing, I'll be keeping hold of the healthiest of plants, probably about 4 to maybe 5 of each variety, and then probably just selling on anything that I have left over. So once these plants get a little bit bigger, fill more of this pot, these will be going into some slightly bigger pots. Now I am actually going to try and grow these on through slightly bigger pots every month or so and get them into a little bit larger, but at the same time I'm not going to be growing my chilies in any pots this year. Well, I think I'm probably going to grow about 10. The rest are going to go into the ground inside the new polytunnel, which I'm really hoping they're going to enjoy, because last year my cayenne peppers that I grew and planted into the polytunnel were absolutely massive. They were really big, and we got an abundant amount of chili peppers that year. Now I've tried to be a little bit more careful this year with my labelling, and instead of me rewriting out the names each and every time, I've given them all numbers, and the corresponding name to those numbers I've got on a spreadsheet. Because if you're anything like me, I am incredibly bad at labels on plants, and the amount of times I have forgotten what variety is what, and you just never know what you're going to get. Now the one thing I do need to do is get a fan on them to strengthen up those stems, otherwise they can become a little bit weak. Maybe for an hour, maybe for 2 hours a day, just to give them a light breeze going across. This will help with any moisture issues as well, keep it all nice and free flowing and give it that little bit of strength. When you're growing chilies and you're growing them indoors, you do have to look after them. You don't overwater, don't underwater, and make sure they've got some airflow too. Now I've got some plastic sheeting in this where I've actually brought it up to along the sides. Now that sheeting, it's old pond liner. So when I want to water any of these, I can actually just pour water directly onto the actual sheeting so it spreads along, so all the chili peppers get watered from the bottom up. This will encourage those roots to grow and to fill those pots. If you water from the top, those roots are not going to go down searching for that water. So bottom watering as you're growing your chilies on is really quite important. Now in general, I think I've got between 10, 15, maybe even 20 of certain varieties. And I know I certainly don't need all those. But I want to make sure I've got a good crop. So I've got some backup plants as well. Whatever I don't use, again, I'll just pass on or sell on to somebody else. Obviously not for that much money. But I have got some really good varieties, which I'll show here, which ones I'm actually growing this year. Typically, the best of the bunch is at the back where I can't reach because I've got everything else in the way. I think my t-shirt's quite apt today, don't you think? This will be available on my little store over the next week or so. And this mug, which I'm not going to say whether I do or don't, is also available on my Odd Socks store, which I'll link below in the description. So how is your chili growing, guys? Have you had any success? Have you started sowing any yet? You are rapidly running out of time to sow chillies, only because they take so long to mature and to grow. You can start them later without all this kind of faff, but you'll probably get a better growth in their second year if you can overwinter them. It's just one of those things that does take a little while to grow in our climate, so you do have to start them indoors in general to get the best out of your crop at least. So what chillies are you growing? What stage have you got to? Have you had much success? I'm really hoping that this continues to carry on being successful, but I never count my chickens before they hatch. Things can go wrong very, very quickly. But I'm really hoping that these actually do work out. And I think for 4 weeks growth, I am very, very impressed. So that's enough of me showing off, because I'm sure it's going to bite me in the backside. And I've got a lot of jobs to get on with. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and I shall see you in the next video.